Circles of mushrooms, known as fairy rings, have been a mystery for centuries. Many theories, both scientific and folkloric, have been suggested in an attempt to explain this phenomenon. On this journey through fairy rings, we will take a look at true facts, scientific theories, and worldly folklore. First, let's dive into some of the scientific theories that scientists have put forth to explain this phenomenon over the years. In 1675, fairy rings were believed to be electrical in origin and the result of lightning strikes. This theory could be traced all the way back to ancient Greece. Ancient Greeks thought that mushrooms and fairy rings were brought to earth by Zeus, god of the skies, thunder, and lightning. Because of this belief, ancient Greeks thought highly of mushrooms. Ancient Romans and Aztecs also loved mushrooms and believed that they were sent by gods. In 1807, English chemist William Hyde suggested that fairy rings had an origin having to do with chemicals. There were also theories that related fairy rings to minerals and nitrogen. While the direct cause of fairy rings is unknown, scientists today are closer than ever to finding their origin. Now, let's go over the facts. The fruiting mushroom bodies above the ground are a small part of a large mycelium underground. The mycelium is a noodle-like root of a mushroom. Over 200 species of mushrooms can form rings. There are two types of fairy rings: free rings and tethered rings. Free rings receive nutrients directly from organic matter, such as soil, causing it to widen and create new rings each year while the center dies. Tethered rings depend on a specific supply of food. If it is attached to a tree, it will help the tree to collect nutrients and moisture. Trees and tethered fairy rings have mutualistic relationships. After the heavy rain, the mycelium of a fairy ring collects nutrients from the rainwater in the soil on the inside of the ring, causing the inside to be slightly drier and more unhealthy. This is why animals prefer not to eat the inside grass. Farmers used to think that their animals wouldn't eat the inner grass because it was cursed. They also believed that their animals' milk would curdle if they gazed into a fairy ring. Which leads us to the worldwide folklore behind fairy rings. In the Netherlands, fairy rings were thought by the people to be caused by splashes left from when the devil churned his milk. In Australia, they once believed that rings marked where a dragon's tail had scorched the earth. In the Philippines, the Filipino people believed that tiny spirits made them. In Hawaii, folklore states that tiny people called menehune, I probably butchered the pronunciation, built them on the islands at nighttime. Across Europe, fairy rings were thought to be the result of witchcraft. France, Germany, and England all thought fairy rings came from witches dancing. Dancing in general was likely the most common explanation for the cause and formation of fairy rings. Native American groups believed that fairy rings came from dancing bison. In Britain and Ireland, people thought that the rings were created by dancing fairies on moonlit nights as seats for non-human spectators who watched the fairies dance. In Scandinavia, they believed that rings came from dancing elves, although these elves were not the dainty kind and were quite unfriendly to humans. Many believed that many unfortunate things could happen to a person if they went inside a fairy ring, such as dying young, madness, losing an eye, going blind, getting hanged if you're a thief, becoming permanently invisible to humans, and being captured, tortured, enslaved, and sentenced to dance until exhaustion, as well as death through fairy malice, as stated in The Magic of Mushrooms by Sandra Lawrence. To escape a fairy ring, One would have to dance for 1 year and 1 day before they are able to be rescued. Someone would have thrown marjoram and thyme into the ring to confuse the fairies, gone into the ring with a rope tied round their waist, and been pulled out by, hopefully strong, friends while carrying the victim. Victims of fairy rings may have little to no recollection whatsoever of their time and experience in the ring, and may be haunted by fairy music forever. Time travel and crumbling to dust upon their returning to their own time is also a possibility, as well as collapsing when they eat human food. Yippee. There are much more negative tales surrounding fairy rings than positive ones, although there are quite a few more pleasant tales. For example, if young girls could obtain some dew from inside the ring without stepping in it, they could use it to achieve clear skin and cast love spells. I'm going to need some of that dew. If a person wore their hat backwards and ran 9 laps around the fairy ring, not 10, 9, in the direction of the sun on a night with a full moon, they would receive good fortune and the ability to hear the fairies in their underground realm. Some believe that finding a new fairy ring brought prosperity and fertility. To this day, fairy rings remain as mysterious as ever. Humanity still has much to learn about the strange life form that is fungi. With mycology being recognized as a respectful study subject and profession, we are closer than ever before to uncovering and understanding the mysteries of mushrooms.